never thought anything like this would happen. Jessica, she was my best friend. She was my sister.
She started telling me he was changing.
He would come over. He was supposed to stay away from Jessica.
Jessica met a new guy. I just did not get a good vibe.
I just felt something was going to happen.
Stop! Stop!
Police department! Oh my God.
The woman had multiple serious stab wounds.
Why didn't she call me? Why would somebody do this to her?
911, what's your emergency?
I got stabbed.
One was blaming the other one for what happened to Jessica.
I gotta stop.
It's like someone grabbed your heart and ripped it out.
I do feel betrayed.
I think we're filming. Okay.
I'm checking the camera. I can't get it focused.
Was she alive while this was all happening?
It's surreal to think this really happened.
This is...
I'm signing off.
This is my story.
My story.
My story.
Our story.
In our own words.
And it's unfiltered. I had a star named after Jessica, and so I like to come outside and I like to sit and talk to her like we used to do. I miss you, Jessica. I wish you were here. I miss our talks. I love you. We were inseparable. We used to be called the sisters. Everybody wanted to hang out with the sisters. She always had a smile on her face. She was just a great person to be around. When she passed away, I blamed it on myself. I've always protected Jessica. She was my best friend. She was my sister. It's been 5 years since my sister's murder, and I want to share my story now because this could happen to you. I'm going to my mom's house where me and Jessica grew up. It was a small town of Langford, South Dakota. Driving around these country roads takes me back to me and Jessica being younger. We'd drive the back roads around Langford all the time and smoke cigarettes because nobody would see us. But my mom knew. I actually only been in my mom's house once since my sister passed away. Okay, I'm pulling into my mom's driveway, and we're here. And that's my Aunt Billy. Hi. Hi.
Jessica and Shannon were always together. They did everything together.
Hi. How's it going? Good, how are you? Good.
Shannon is doing stronger than I thought she would be, but I still don't think she's okay. Or ever will be, without her sister.
Picture of me and Jessica when we were little. I miss her. A lot. It's not fair.
No, it isn't fair.
I'm sitting in my sister's room, looking at everything. It brings back a lot of memories. She was very artistic. We spent a lot of time together in here. We'd sit in here, talk, watch TV, play video games. When she was 16 years old, Jessica had fallen in love with Tim.
Tim was a little older than her. He was working. And she was just getting right out of high school.
When Jessica found out she was going to have a baby, she was so happy. Jessica and Tim had Preston when she was 18. They moved to Aberdeen. When Jessica turned 21, she became more sociable and started going out a lot more.
That's when it all started. Hanging out with different people that I don't think Tim wanted her to hang out with.
Jessica and Tim, they would argue, and Jessica would get mad at Tim for doing something wrong or vice versa. After Jessica and Tim broke up, me and Jessica hung out a lot more than we used to. I was happy to have my best friend back. The favorite bar we liked to go to back in the day was the zoo. When me and Jessica would go to the zoo, we would dance and talk to a bunch of people that we knew. We would just hang out. Going to the zoo bar back in 2009, I didn't realize how much that would change our lives. Back at the zoo bar, it's been a long time. It's really empty right now, which is really weird. Normally it's packed full of people. It's different to this day coming into this bar without her, because it does bring back a lot of fun times we had together. Back in 2009, when me and my sister Jessica were single, we came here and wanted to have fun, have some drinks, hang out. I wanted to get a drink at the bar, and so I went, the bar's over there, and that's when I met John. John was a construction worker. I thought he was nice. I didn't know much about him, but he made me laugh. We were at my house where me and Jessica and John hung out for the first time in my living room. And I was trying to get to know John. I thought he was a good person. John made a lot of jokes. He made us laugh a lot. And they were hitting it off really well. It was like love at first sight, almost. Jessica and John started dating right away. I really liked John. I thought he was a good fit for her. Together as a couple, it was nice to see her happy. John treated Jessica really well. He'd buy her flowers, just little gifts that make her happy. He always put a smile on her face with his little jokes. She really loved him, she really loved him. They were pretty inseparable. You could just tell they were happy. They loved their kids. They would do anything for those babies. They always called them my babies. They were both really good parents. Everything seemed to be okay until she started to become depressed. She wouldn't smile. Sometimes she would call me just crying.
She started telling me a little bit about John, about how he was changing. After they've had the babies, she didn't feel like he was there for her anymore like he used to be.
When I moved into Jessica's house, I felt the vibes. I knew something was wrong. John changed into a more controlling and aggressive person. John would control Jessica by not letting her wear makeup. He wouldn't let her wear perfume. It was called hoe juice. She had to be home at a certain time. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. Just about to pull up to where Jessica used to work. This is where Jessica and my Aunt Billy worked. Jessica was very popular with people at work. She always came in with a smile, even though she was having a bad day.
She came to work one day. She had sunglasses on, and I told her to take them off. She had a black eye. And I said, "Where'd you get that from?" And she said it was John.
It made me mad and sad all at the same time that he would actually want to hit her. This is the first time I found out that things got violent. When I moved out of Jessica's house, things got worse for Jessica. She told me I should have never moved out, but I told Jessica I can't always be there to fight your battles. You need to start fighting back. Jessica really did want John to change. She just kept telling me she loves him and he'll change, and she gave him chances and chances and chances, and he didn't. So a couple of months after Jessica and John had split up, Jessica started dating somebody new.
Jessica met a new guy named Richard, but I was hoping he was nothing like John.
When I found out about Jessica dating Richard and John at the same time, I was mad. I deep down inside I knew something was wrong. And I just felt something was going to happen. So we were here at my house where Jessica had introduced me to Richard for the first time. Jessica brought Richard over here. She wanted to introduce him to me because she really liked him and she wanted to be with him. I felt I was looking at another John because they had the same hair color. He was just shorter. I didn't really know a lot about Richard, but I've heard he had been to jail, and I didn't know what he was in jail for. I told Jessica that I think she needed to get her life together before she would rush into another relationship. I had my suspicions about Richard. Jessica had Richard over at her house a lot. They started to get to know each other. They started dating. I did worry that Jessica was falling in love with somebody that she just kind of started hanging out with. Jessica asked me how I felt about her moving away with Richard. I don't know why Richard would want to move somebody away from friends and family. I personally think he just wanted to do whatever he wanted with her and not have anybody around. John was supposed to stay away from Jessica. He was supposed to stay so many feet away. He actually was staying with a friend 2 doors down.
Even though she was with Richard, I knew there was something else going on the side. I know for a fact she was not telling me half the truth because she didn't want me to know. I know there was back and forth texting and stuff with Jessica and John when Richard was out of the house. John's still there, being in the picture, not leaving her alone. It made me have anxiety, made me worry more.
He would sweet talk her into, hey, let me come over. I want to get back together. We can work this out. We have kids together. He would come over. She wouldn't tell me that he was there. And I already knew he was there. So she was lying to me. And I was getting more mad at her because she was lying to me. I don't think Richard knew Jessica was in contact with John, but if he did know, I'm pretty sure they would have fought. So me and Jessica just got done spending the day together after the holidays, hanging out with the kids, watching movies. And I would walk her outside of my house, and I'd walk her over to her car, which was parked over here. And I said goodbye to her and the kids. I didn't know that waving goodbye was waving goodbye forever.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm on my way to the hospital. I got stabbed. I need someone to go check out my ex-girlfriend and my kids. Because the guy was still there when I left.
Okay, now what happened, sir?
I got stabbed.
Okay, who did it? Who was in the house?
Richard Hanley.
Okay, how far are you away from the hospital?
I'm pulling up to the emergency room now.
He was still in the house when you left?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have officers there as soon as we can.
Thank you.
What's your name, sir?
John Heminger.
There's a little girl sitting in the steps in the back. There's a 3-year-old girl sitting in the steps right now. There's a bunch of blood at the bottom of the steps.
Police department!
Police department!
Come out with your hands up! Let me see it! Announce! Richard, if you're in here, announce! Come out with your hands up now!
We got a body down back here. She's still breathing.
I need medics here now.
Little girl, get back. 281, 334.
Advise the medics at 11.
Oh my God. Hey, keep your eyes open. Ma'am, eyes open. Keep breathing, okay? All right? I need you to keep your eyes open.
Sure, we know you're upstairs. Come on around the corner. Let me see ya.
Keep them open. Medics are almost here, okay? I need you to keep breathing.
Well, I get a call in the middle of the night, like 2:49. A woman, Jessica Goebel, had had her throat slashed and had multiple serious stab wounds throughout her head and neck area. I sent one detective over to the scene of the residence where the crime had occurred, and the other detective accompanied me to the hospital. So I walk in, I said, can you give me a rundown of what's going on? I'm just getting pieces given to me from other detectives, what they're learning as we go along. The individual that was in the next room to Jessica Goebel was a guy named John Heminger. He had come in with a cut up hand. I'd never met John Heminger before. When asked what happened there, he said, well, I brought myself into the ER. I had a friend drive me because I'd been attacked by Jessica's new boyfriend, Richard Hanley. Now that name I knew. I've known Richard Hanley for many years. I knew him as a kid, he's always had his issues, run-ins here and there. I knew he was on parole at the time. So Heminger says to me that Jessica called him to get his work clothes.
She said, no one's gonna be here. The back door will be open. Come get your work pants. So I said, okay. They no contact.
He knows that there's this no contact order. That, so he's telling me, hey, I'm obeying this contact order. So she was gonna be gone. I go over to the house to simply grab my work clothes, and I was gonna be out of there. So he goes over there, finds his clothes, and out of the darkness pops Richard Hanley.
He goes, what you doing? I'm the new man of the house. He pulls out his pocket. He started swinging.
Heminger is basically on his back, and Mr. Hanley's above him, stabbing away at him. I believe he said he eye gouged Richard or punched him to get him off. So as he gets him off, Heminger is able to get away. From there he runs to his friend's house and gets a ride to the hospital, and here we are. So at this point, with Jessica fighting for her life, there's one priority. I have to find Richard Hanley. I tell John Heminger, you're going to have a pretty large crime scene. We're going to need to get everybody's DNA to put things together as to whose blood is where here. Do you have a problem with me doing this? And Heminger was fine with that. He encouraged me to look at his phone to see these messages between the two of them. Their relationship is definitely getting better. It's going in the right direction. Please look at my phone, is what he kept urging me. Things are good between me and Jessica.
My Aunt Bailey took me back to Jessica's room, and I just seen her lay there with a bunch of machines hooked up to her. And I held her hand.
A police officer come up and told me that Jessica had been stabbed. They got her liver, got it cut across her throat, and many multiple stabs across her torso and her back.
Jessica had a bunch of tubes going, like she was hooked up to a bunch of machines. She had a breathing tube. You could see little cuts on her hands. She had bandages all over. She's still covered in blood. It wasn't all quite cleaned up yet. And I just lost it. I found out in the hospital that Richard and John got into an altercation at Jessica's house. In my mind, I was thinking like it could have been Richard or John that could have stabbed Jessica.
Earlier in the night, there was actually a 911 call placed by Jessica around 6 in the evening.
Somebody here at 11 North 2nd Street, please, hurry.
What's going on there?
There's a fight.
Who's fighting? Ma'am, who's fighting?
John!
Who's fighting with John?
Stop! Stop! Stop!
Hello? Can I get your name real quick?
Jessica Goebel.
Thank you.
So I knew there was connection earlier. That 911 call had something to do with the stabbing at the house. Heminger saying that he got attacked by Richard Hanley. I'm thinking, where's Richard? Is Richard on the run from us? Mr. Hanley is definitely a person of interest.
I am driving to my sister's place where John and Jessica used to live. I actually avoid going down that street. It kind of gives me the creeps. I don't know if I can do this. It's weird sitting across the street. It's just really hard. I'm walking across the street to my sister's old apartment. It's really hard to stand here right now. just looking at it and what everything that Jessica went through at that house. I can't go any further because I'm shaking. I gotta stop. So, I am about 100 miles away from Sioux Falls. That's where my sister was airlifted to the hospital because of her injuries. They were so severe. I haven't actually been to Sioux Falls since the last time I had to drive down this road to see my sister. That was quite a whole ride. And I just kept looking up in the sky thinking I could see the helicopter. Because I wanted to be there like at the exact same time. I don't know how I'm going to feel when I get there, since this is the first time I'll be back to the hospital since my sister's been treated.
At this point, we have Heminger with his story. We have Jessica fighting for her life. And where's Richard Hanley? We're looking for this guy, and I'm asking every available officer on the street, we gotta find this guy. So I told all the guys, okay, priority number one, we gotta find Richard. We don't know what his role is in this, but definitely is gonna be huge. I reached out and got a hold of his mother. I think I even told her, I'm looking to arrest him. I just need to talk to him to help me out with something. You have him call me immediately. Richard calls me, and I asked him where he was. He said, I'm at my dad's on the Indian reservation. We don't have jurisdiction on an Indian reservation. The individual has to be off the reservation. And I said, I need to meet with you. I need to get an actual statement. He's like, well, I'm afraid to come back because I'm going to get locked up. He goes, are you willing to come over to the reservation and talk to me? That way I know you can't take me off the reservation. I cross over into the Indian reservation, meet with Hanley. He agrees to get into my vehicle, turns over the clothes to me, lets me get his DNA, take pictures, and he's banged up good. Richard was crying extremely hard over Jessica. He's like, how is she? When can I see her? How bad is this? When I told him how bad it was and how grim things were looking, yeah, he lost it hard crying. I said, what happened last night? And he told me that he got beat up by Heminger. He says Heminger found him in the room and immediately attacked him. So he started beating the hell out of me, and I basically had to run for my life. No time to stop and grab anything. I ran out of that house without shoes. So what time is this about? And it was around that 6 o'clock fight that got called in. What do you know after that? He says, well, nothing. I got beat up bad. I mean, really bad. I asked Richard, well, what was the plan? He goes, well, I was hurt serious enough. I knew I needed to go to the hospital, but I knew I couldn't go to the hospital in Aberdeen because being a parole absconder, the police are probably going to look for me over at the hospital. So I told my mom, take me to the reservation. And I said, when does this happen? He goes, right after I got that beating. Okay, then what? Well, I'm at the ER there. I go, so there's going to be proof and records there. He goes, yeah. He says, from the hospital, they checked me out. And my mom takes me over to the Indian casino nearby on the reservation. It's also a hotel, and we check in for the night. Okay, they have video surveillance, I assume, because all the casino hotels do. He says, I assume so. I said, you know, there's a lot of blood in the house from what had occurred. Is your blood going to be anywhere? Because we're going to send it in, that's why I'm collecting your DNA. And he told me the only place my blood would be that I could see is, he goes, here's where I got beat up. I ran right out the door. He goes, anywhere in that path. I've talked to Richard many times throughout my career. The guy's always been fair and honest with me. After interviewing both John Heminger and Richard Hanley, one was blaming the other one for what happened to Jessica.
I haven't been back here in 4 years. I feel kind of weird. I'm just gonna walk through the doors now. As we arrived, we didn't know what was going on, and we had to wait until we could talk to the doctors and finally be able to see her. I continued to go in her room every half hour to an hour to hold her hand. She would like make muscle spasms, so I thought like something was happening, and so I would just continue to talk to her. I told her I loved her and her babies loved her and that she needed to wake up because we all wanted her to come home.
One of my other detectives, she's kind of inventorying Heminger's clothes because we're taking his clothes as evidence. And as she takes this large coat of his that he confirmed he was wearing, she asks him, do you have a knife in here? And she pulls out a knife handle, but it's missing the blade. I'm looking at this knife handle, inspected, and I do see, you know, it's been cleaned. And I ask Heminger, what's going to happen when we send this in for testing? And it comes back with Jessica's blood in there. Doesn't know it wasn't him. He'd been appointed a lawyer, so the interviews were done.
The lead detective, Sergeant Gross, he didn't think they had probable cause to place Mr. Heminger under arrest at that point, and I agreed with him.
A guy not sounding good isn't enough to arrest, and we need something else to hold this guy. When I sent a picture to my detective who was processing the crime scene, no more than a couple minutes later, my detective calls me back and goes, just found a blade that looks like about the size of that handle that you showed me there. And my detective told me that blade was found by the sink and had been cleaned up. We get medical records from the emergency room on the Indian Reservation verifying that when this incident was supposedly going down, that's where Richard was. Hanley had definitely been at the hospital, had definitely been at the casino and checked in. And we did get the video surveillance from the casino. And it was genuine that he had no knowledge of what had happened. I tell Heminger I know his story's a lie, and I lay it out all where Richard had been. I told him the only thing you can do for yourself now is show remorse and explain why this happened, what happened. And he refused. At this point, I arrest Heminger for attempted murder.
We stayed in there for a long time. None of us wanted to miss out on something if she would wake up or... The doctors finally came in and told us that she had a skull fracture, and if she would even wake up, she might not know who any of us were or even who she was. So at that time, we all kind of went outside and decided if we wanted her to live that life or just let her go. Sorry. This is hard. So we decided that we would just let her go. And we told the doctors that we wanted our family to come up and say goodbye. I took my mom to the side and I told her I can't stay here and watch her not be hooked up to a machine and not breathing, and that I needed to go home so I can take care of her babies like she wanted me to. And so I waited there for a while until everybody showed up. I stayed as long as I could. I told everybody goodbye, and that was the last time I saw her.
Some of the evidence that we found in this case that led us to believe this was a strong case for prosecution. Mr. Heminger had a knife handle with no blade, but with blood in the handle in his pocket, which ultimately matched up to a knife blade that was found in the home in the sink where Jessica was found wounded. We found a lot of clothes that Mr. Heminger allegedly had wore, found in a garbage bag a couple houses down at a home that Mr. Heminger had been staying at. And they had blood on them from Jessica. And Mr. Heminger had produced his phone to law enforcement at the hospital saying, "Why don't you look at this? You'll see that we don't have a bad relationship." A forensic detective found some deleted text messages that were nastier from Mr. Heminger to Jessica.
After Heminger stabbed up Jessica, he now had time to contrive the scene, to make a story, make a plan, how he was going to do this. What he's going to do with the clothes that are bloody on him. How he's going to pin this all on Richard, because he's extremely pissed off at Richard. He's got this knife. The blade had broken off. It was so violent that he cleans the blade, leaves that laying at the sink, but for whatever reason, he forgets the handle in his pocket with blood in it. Came back to Jessica, and that probably haunts him for the rest of his life.
John Heminger was charged with first-degree murder, which is a Class A felony, potential death penalty. Mr. Heminger never took the stand, so we never got to really explore through cross-examination what his motive was for murdering Jessica Goebel.
We didn't pursue the death penalty because we just wanted John to just admit what he did, but he didn't even care. I'm at the state penitentiary and I had written a letter the day that Heminger got sentenced. It says, "I will never forget what you had done to my sister. You took my sister away. At least you have your family to talk to still, and I will never get the chance to talk to her about her day. How could you have done this in front of your children and to leave them there? What kind of father does that? I hope you rot in prison. You killed a part of my life when you took her away." Heminger is a coward. He's not going to be able to hurt anybody, and that makes me happy. I know that he would have to spend more than 40 years in there. The only satisfaction I actually have is knowing that he's actually eventually going to die in there.
I wish I never have introduced Jessica to John. I didn't know that I would introduce her to her killer. I learned to live with it now, day to day, but I'll never forget what happened to her. I'll never forget. What I miss most about Jessica is our talks, hanging out, driving around. I just, her smile.
Lifted off 31 balloons for you on your 31st birthday. I try to do something for you every year, just to celebrate your life. I'm also going to live life the strongest I can because I have 2 lives to live for. Mine and for yours.